Have you ever looked at your dating history and noticed a strange, almost haunting pattern? It's like the faces change, the names change, but the story always ends the same way. You find yourself drawn to someone who is emotionally unavailable, someone who runs hot and cold, or someone who simply cannot meet your needs. It feels like a bad luck, it feels like a curse. In psychology, this is rarely seen as just a coincidence. Welcome to Jaromir's Sessions. Today, we are breaking down one of the most painful cycles in human relationships, the human magnet syndrome. We are going to look at why we are often subconsciously drawn to the very people who are wrong for us, the concept of repetition compulsion, and why your brain might be mistaking chaos for chemistry. If you ever wondered why you keep attracting the same difficult personalities, this session is for you. Let's start with a concept popularized in behavioral studies, the human magnet syndrome. The idea is simple but profound. We don't fall in love with people by accident. We fall in love with people who represent a perfect match for our own internal psychological landscape. Think of it like a magnet. One side you might have the giver, someone who is naturally empathetic, nurturing, and often overly responsible for others' emotions. On the other side, you have the taker, someone who requires a high level of validation, attention, and often lacks the ability to reciprocate. Clinical observations indicate that these two types don't just happen to meet, they are pulled together by an invisible force. The giver feels a sense of purpose when they are helping or fixing someone. The takers feel comfortable being the center of that attention. On day one, it feels like an instant spark, but that spark isn't always love. Often, it's just familiarity. Your subconscious recognizes a role it knows how to play. Now, why would we choose someone who makes us unhappy? This leads us to core psychological concept, repetition compulsion. From a developmental perspective, the brain often recreates familiar environments, even if they are painful. This is the mind's subconscious attempt to rewrite the past. Extensive clinical observations indicate that if a person had an unresolved dynamic with a caregiver or an early figure in their life, perhaps someone who was distant, critical, or inconsistent, the adult brain tries to fix that original wound. But how does it do that? By finding someone in the present who feels just like that person from the past. The logic of the subconscious is: if I can finally get this person to love me or this person to stay, then the original pain will finally be healed. It's like trying to finish a book that had a set ending by reading it over and over again, hoping the words will change on the last page. But the tragedy is that by choosing the same character types, we usually end up with the same ending. We aren't looking for a new result, we are looking for a familiar struggle. Let's look at the concrete example of how this plays out. Imagine a child who grew up with a parent who was only affectionable when they achieve something. Good grades, winning a game, but was cold and distant otherwise. This is known as a conditional love. Fast forward 20 years. This person is now an adult and they meet someone who is emotionally unavailable, someone who ghosts them, then comes back, it's cold again. To an outsider, it looks like a nightmare, but to this adult's subconscious, it feels like home. Why? Because their brain has a script that says, love is something I have to earn. If I just work harder, if I'm just more perfect, they will finally stay. This is the core of the human magnet syndrome. You aren't attracted to the person, you are attracted to the struggle. You are trying to win a battle today that you lost when you were 6 years old. And here is the hardest part to hear. A healthy, stable partner who gives love freely might actually feel wrong to you. You might describe them as nice, but no spark. But often, the spark you are looking for is actually the feeling of your old wounds being activated. We have to be honest. Sometimes what we call boring is actually just healthy. One of the biggest traps is how we interpret our feelings. In this magnet relationship, the intensity is often off the charts. You feel a soulmate connection within hours. But in psychology, we have to ask, is it chemistry or it's an activated nervous system? When you meet someone who fits your repetition compulsion profile, your body goes into a state of high alert. This creates a spike in dopamine and adrenaline. To your conscious mind, this feels like, wow, I've never felt this way before. It must be destiny. But from psychological standpoint, this might actually be anxiety. Your body recognizes the danger of the familiar toxic pattern and it's reacting. We often mistake the butterflies for love when in reality they might be a warning signals that your old wounds are being poked. Stable, healthy people might even feel boring at first because they don't trigger that intense, chaotic survival response. Let's look at how this magnet syndrome actually plays out in a real life scenario. I want you to imagine two people, Emily and Lucas. Emily is what we call a natural giver. She is empathetic, highly responsible, and grew up in the home where she had to manage the emotions of her parents. She learned early on that her value comes from being helpful, being the fixer. Then she meets Lucas. Lucas is charming, but he presents with an avoidant attachment style. He's intense for 2 weeks, then suddenly disappears for 3 days. He tells Emily, I have had a hard life. No one ever really understood me. Now look at the magnet in action. To a person with a health secure background, Lucas' behavior is a red flag. They think this person is inconsistent. I'm out. But Emily, her repetition compulsion kicks in. Her brain says, finally, someone I can understand, someone I can fix. If I can just show him enough love, he will change. Emily isn't falling for Lucas. She's falling for project of Lucas. She is trying to solve a puzzle that cannot be solved. This is how the magnet works. It's not that you attract toxic people, they are everywhere. It's that you don't filter them out because their dysfunction feels like a mission you were born to complete. Now, the other side of the coin, the boring healthy partner. Let's flip the script. Imagine Emily meets David. David is consistent. He texts when he says he will, he's open about his feelings. What does Emily feel? She feels nothing. She tells her friends, he's a great guy, but there is just no spark. I don't feel that pull. We have to ask the hard question. Is the spark actually just the feeling of your trauma being triggered? If you grew up in chaos, peace feels like boredom. If you grew up having to fight for attention, consistency feels like smothering. This is the trap of the human magnet syndrome. We walk away from the people who could actually love us because they don't give us the high of the struggle we are used to. So how do we protect ourselves? How do we change the polarity of our internal magnet? First, you have to recognize the familiarity trap. If someone feels perfect instantly, or if the connection feels desperate and intense, pause. Ask yourself, does this person remind me of a dynamic I have struggled with before? Second, we have to understand the void. Often people who attract toxic personalities have a void they are trying to fill with external validation. In psychology, the goal is to shift from seeking completion in another person to finding wholeness within yourself. When you don't need someone to fix you or validate your worth, the takers and the chameleons lose their power over you. They can no longer hook into your need for approval. Finally, watch for slow growth versus instant fire. Healthy relationships in the real world usually grow like a tree, slowly, steadily, and with consistent effort. Toxic patterns grow like a wildfire, fast, hot, and eventually leaving nothing but ashes. It's crucial to remember you are not a victim of your magnet. You are simply operating on a program that was written a long time ago, but programs can be updated. The moment you realize face while you are attracted to the flame, you can choose to step back and protect your peace. Your emotional energy is a limited resource. Don't waste it on someone who treats your kindness as a weakness or your empathy as a tool. You deserve an authentic connection that doesn't require you to lose yourself in the process. Before we wrap up, I want you to think about your own patterns. Ask yourself honestly, are you looking for love or are you looking for a familiar struggle? Take that question with you. Reflect on it, because the moment you find the answer, the magnet starts to lose its power over you. I'm Jaromir. Thank you for spending this session with me. Stay curious, understand the pattern. And if you're ready to dive deeper into the mechanics of the human mind, subscribe to Jaromir's sessions. I will see you in the next one.